Imagine this: midnight settles over a wealthy estate, silence stretching like a blanket. Then suddenly, glass shatters. Heavy boots crash onto marble floors, and voices snarl in the dark. For most people, terror would take over. But for one woman, quiet, steady, and working as a maid in the home of a millionaire, what she did in that moment would leave her employer stunned and later capture the attention of the entire country. Our story begins in Northern Virginia, where Thomas Whitaker, a 51-year-old millionaire, lived in a large stone mansion tucked away at the edge of a wooded neighborhood. Thomas had built his wealth in logistics and shipping, his company dominating supply routes across several states. He had all the marks of success: luxury cars in the garage, sprawling grounds with fountains, and high walls surrounding his property. Yet, behind the shine, Thomas lived an isolated life. His marriage had ended years earlier, and his grown children rarely visited. The house, though grand, often felt more like a museum than a home. The person who brought rhythm and warmth to that empty space was his maid, Clara Mendoza. Clara, 43, had been working for Thomas for 5 years. She wasn't flashy, nor did she try to impress anyone. She was practical, composed, and carried herself with quiet dignity. She lived in town with her elderly mother, and though she often worked long hours, Clara never let weariness dull her steady spirit. For Thomas, she had become more than just an employee, though he would never say it out loud. She was someone who noticed the little things: when he skipped dinner, when he seemed too tired, or when the silence in the house grew too heavy. That summer, fear was rippling through the community. A string of robberies had struck wealthy neighborhoods, the kind of homes that seemed untouchable. Masked men were breaking through gates and security systems, armed and efficient. They left behind trashed rooms, shaken families, and news reports that dominated local channels. Thomas reassured himself that his home was safe. His gates were tall, his alarms state-of-the-art. But on one stormy night in July, reality came crashing in. Thomas had fallen asleep in his study, the glow of his computer still on his face. Downstairs, Clara was finishing in the kitchen, rinsing the last dish and wiping the counter. Then it happened, a sharp crack of glass breaking near the back door. Clara froze, her breath catching for a moment. Then came the heavy stomp of boots against the floor. Upstairs, Thomas jolted awake, heart pounding. But what startled him more than the noise was Clara's reaction. She didn't scream. She didn't drop the dishcloth. She didn't run. Instead, she calmly set the towel aside, straightened her back, and turned toward the sound. 3 masked men poured into the kitchen. One held a gun, another swung a crowbar, and the third carried a duffel bag. Their eyes flicked around the room like predators. Thomas, peeking down from the top of the staircase, felt frozen with fear. But Clara stood there, her face steady, her eyes unwavering. "Don't move," the man with the gun barked, pointing the weapon straight at her. Clara's voice came calm, almost soothing. "There's no reason to hurt anyone. Take what you came for and leave." The men hesitated. The one with the crowbar snarled, "Lady, you think you're calling the shots here?" Clara didn't blink. "I think you're nervous. Nervous men do reckless things. I don't want you to regret a choice tonight." Thomas's mouth went dry. This was Clara, the same woman who folded laundry, who dusted the shelves, and yet here she was, standing firm in front of armed men, her voice steady enough to make them pause. The gunman shifted uneasily, then jerked his head toward the stairs. "Upstairs. Cash. Jewelry. Move it." Clara nodded and walked slowly toward the staircase, not rushing, not faltering. And in that moment, Thomas understood. She was keeping their focus on her. She was steering the danger away from him. But why? Why would she risk herself like this? As she passed the staircase, her eyes flicked up for a brief second, meeting Thomas's. She didn't say a word, but in that single glance she gave him a message he couldn't ignore: "Trust me." Thomas crept back into his study, his hands trembling as he grabbed the phone. He whispered frantically into the receiver after dialing 911, giving his address, his voice shaking. Then he peered back into the hallway, watching. Upstairs, the robbers barked demands for safes and valuables. Clara pointed to a chest where jewelry was kept, speaking evenly. Her voice was controlled, her hands steady. But the men grew frustrated when one of the safes jammed, their tempers rising, their movements sharp and jerky. Through it all, Clara remained composed. Thomas's chest tightened as he watched her. For years, he had seen her as part of the background of his life. Tonight, she was the bravest person he had ever seen. The crowbars slammed against the safe, and one of the men cursed loudly. "This is a waste of time." "You already have enough," Clara said firmly. "Don't make things worse for yourselves." Her tone had weight, as if her words carried more truth than they should have. The men faltered again, but the gunman's anger flared. He raised his weapon, pointing it square at Clara's chest. Thomas's breath caught in his throat, his pulse hammering. And then Clara did something no one expected. She stepped forward, closing the space between herself and the gun. The gunman stiffened as Clara closed the distance, his finger trembling near the trigger. For a moment, the room went silent except for the faint rumble of thunder outside. Thomas gripped the banister so tightly his knuckles whitened, afraid to even breathe. Clara's voice came low and steady. "You don't want to do this," she said. "You have families. Someone is waiting for you at home. Don't let tonight be the night you throw it all away." The gunman blinked, caught off guard. His chest rose and fell in quick bursts, but he didn't pull the trigger. The other men exchanged nervous glances. Clara's calmness was unnerving, as though she wasn't afraid of them at all. "You talk too much," the man with the crowbar snapped, trying to reassert control. "Open the safe now." "I can't," Clara replied. "It's not mine." "But I know this, you've already taken enough to walk away." Her words cut through the chaos like a blade. For some reason, none of them could bring themselves to strike her. The gunman lowered the barrel slightly, though his hands still shook. From the corner of the hallway, Thomas whispered into the phone again, urging the police to hurry. But the dispatcher's words blurred in his ears. "Stay quiet, units are on the way." Every second felt like a lifetime. Then it happened, the sound of distant sirens, faint but growing. The robbers stiffened. Panic flickered across their faces. "Cops," the one with the duffel bag hissed. "We need to move." But the gunman wasn't ready to give up. He grabbed Clara by the arm, jerking her toward him. "You're coming with us." "Insurance." Thomas's heart dropped. He stepped forward without thinking, his voice breaking out, "No. Leave her." The men snapped their heads toward the sound, their weapons raised. Thomas instantly regretted it, but it was too late, he was no longer hidden. Clara, still in the gunman's grip, turned her head sharply. "Don't," she whispered, her eyes locking on Thomas. Her calmness hadn't broken, even now. The sirens grew louder. Red and blue lights began to flash through the windows. The men panicked, their plan unraveling before their eyes. "Forget it, let's go," the crowbar-wielding man shouted. But the gunman tightened his grip on Clara, dragging her toward the back stairs. "She's coming with us." In that split second, Clara made a choice that would change everything. With a swift, unexpected move, she stomped hard on the gunman's foot, twisted her arm free, and shoved him backward with all her strength. The motion caught him off guard, sending him stumbling. The gun went off, bang, the deafening sound echoing through the halls. Thomas flinched, certain the bullet had struck her. But when the smoke cleared, Clara was still standing. The bullet had lodged in the wall behind her. Before the gunman could regain control, Clara darted to the side, placing herself between the robbers and the staircase where Thomas stood. The men, now fully aware of the flashing lights outside and the blaring sirens growing closer, scrambled. They shoved past each other in a frenzy, crashing through the back door and vanishing into the night just as squad cars screeched to a stop outside. Police stormed the house, weapons drawn. Within minutes, officers spread out through the property, while others pursued the robbers into the woods beyond. Thomas rushed down the stairs, his heart still racing, his voice trembling as he called out, "Clara! Are you hurt?" She stood there in the dim light, her breathing steady though her hands shook faintly now that the danger had passed. She looked at him, her calm breaking only enough to reveal the smallest tremor in her eyes. "I'm fine," she whispered. Thomas's chest tightened with relief. You saved me. You saved this house." Clara shook her head. "No. I just did what needed to be done." The police gathered statements, marking bullet holes, photographing shattered glass, and collecting evidence. The robbers weren't caught that night, though officers promised they wouldn't get far. But inside that mansion, the moment had already changed everything. Thomas couldn't stop staring at Clara. For years, he had thought of her as someone in the background of his life, quiet and reliable. But tonight, she had stepped into the line of fire, literally, to shield him. And she had done it not with fear, but with a bravery that humbled him. As dawn broke, the mansion no longer felt like the same place. Reporters gathered outside the gates by morning, eager for details. News spread quickly, masked men had attempted another robbery, but inside that home, a maid had stared down armed criminals and stood her ground. When a reporter shouted, "Sir, is it true your maid saved you?" Thomas paused. He looked back at Clara, who stood quietly by the doorway, her hair slightly undone from the struggle, her face pale but resolute. And for the first time in years, Thomas felt something stir inside him, gratitude mixed with awe. "Yes," he said firmly. "She did more than save me. She showed me what courage looks like." But the story wasn't over yet. In the days to come, Clara's actions would not only be praised in the headlines, they would draw out truths about her life, her strength, and her reasons for staying so calm when everyone else would have broken down. And when the world learned her next move, it would leave them speechless.